Hello, and welcome to The Kosh. I'm your host, Timber Smith, and The Kosh is a podcast that spotlights people who've had an association with the Kosh or the surrounding Fox Cities area. Good morning, Kosh listeners. Oh, wait. This episode of The Kosh is sponsored by Sturgeon Spirits Craft Distillery, the Kosh's newest tradition. You know, I got to give a shout out to my team or my friends over there at Sturgeon Spirits, and you know they added this new cocktail on the menu called the Kosh. Be sure you go in there and have a the Kosh. It is fantastic. Kosh listeners, it is once again another fantastic weekend morning. It is sunny. It is cold, but not too cold. And you know what? Wisconsin, we've got to have this weather conversation real quick. I literally think in the last 24 hours, we've gone through 4 seasons. 4 seasons. And what I mean by that is like it was 50 degrees. Then it dropped down and I felt like it was 20 some degrees and windy. Then it snowed. And then I believe today is supposed to get back up into the 50s. And I'm just like, oh, Wisconsin is wrong. It's so wrong to us. Anyway, what am I going to say? Because it's not like I'm moving. I am here for life. All right. Well, you know what? I am super excited to once again have this conversation with this individual. I've been trying to coax them into sitting down in the Kosh chair and having a conversation with me for some time. So we finally got them, and I'm super excited about that. And even more importantly, Kosh listeners, you know what I'm going to say. You know what I'm about to say. I don't know why I continue to get these amazing guest. And this week is no different. This is going to be a fire episode. So, without any further ado, this week's guest is Jason Schulist. What's up, Jason?
Hey, how's it going today?
It is going awesome.
I agree with your 4 seasons. I think next week we're going to get in the 70s.
You got to be kidding me. Are we getting in the 70s in February?
February. And then we'll get winter in about May.
Yeah. It better not. Look, once we go warm, we can't go back.
I hope not.
No, let's just stay in the 70s. If we're going to get 70s in February, let's just cruise right on into summer.
That would be wonderful.
It would be wonderful. You know, I'm not going to lie. Yesterday, I was complaining a little bit about the weather, and somebody had to check me in real quick. And you know what they said to me? You do realize it's February, right? And I was like, oh, you're right. They were like, this could be so much worse. And I was like, oh, I can't say nothing, can I? And I just had to eat it.
Yeah, I know with the dusting of snow that we got, I was like, there's no way I'm shoveling. I'm just gonna
wait. Oh no. If it's a dusting, that's gotta melt. I gotta wait that out. What you can't even shovel a dusting.
No.
You know what I like? I like people that come out there with their leaf blowers and just go on and blow the snow. Like that's nice. That's good strategy.
Exactly. It's smart.
All right, Jason, you ready to jump in?
Yep.
Well, can you please share a little something about yourself and your connection to the Kosh and the surrounding Fox Cities region?
Sure. I originally am from Milwaukee, so 29 moves later, I came to this area. So I've been in Appleton for about 10 years. Before that, I was all over the place. I worked in the automobile industry, the paper industry, the utility industry, the construction industry. I always say that I started with like auto, which is from like the 1800s. Then I worked into paper, which is, well, utilities actually. And that was like from like the early 1700s. And then I went into paper industry, which is like BC. And then I went to construction, which is like 2000 BC. And I'm like, what industries are left? And I'm not going there. So I'm going to stay going backwards in technologies and always in like billion-dollar companies. And now I'm working in social sustainability within our region. So I've done a little nonprofit, and I now lead the Fox Valley Data Exchange, which is a data infrastructure from Oshkosh up through the Fox cities. And I'm also a member and founder of the Generative Local Community Institute. So I can share a little bit more about that. later.
I want you to share a little bit more. Well, the first one, I just want to jump back to the data exchange for a second. Because what does that mean? Now, I know what that means, but the Kosh listeners need to know what that means because I just think this idea is genius.
Super. Okay. So when I was working at Bolt Construction and working in nonprofits and helping being on their boards and so on and so forth, I noticed that it was like really hard to get data in our community. So you'd have to go scrounge around finding data, and the nonprofits and healthcare and public health and businesses are all going looking for the same data sources, and they can't find them, or they got to go hire somebody to do that. And a couple times I got hired to do that, and I'm like, what if we made this easy so people could see the data and they could use the data to make better decisions? And so a website will be coming shortly. I was just down here in Oshkosh yesterday talking with Winnebago Public Health about this idea and the opportunity. And so we're basically about to launch this in the next quarter, so everybody will have this ability to look at the data, understand the data from one type of data to another. So like if they're looking at a housing problem, they get different sources of data to kind of work on this housing or homelessness problem. And then also we'll have some analysis that we can do to help other nonprofits and the community make better decisions about their data.
I can't stress how many phone calls I get about data. You know, people all the time. Well, can you tell me how many of this? Do you know how many businesses of color that are in the region? Do you know how many people of this demographic are in the region? Like, I get those calls all the time, and it's like they're always surprised that like a lot of that stuff isn't getting tracked like they think. Like, basically, it's the census.
Right.
All I can kick you back often is census numbers, and you know we're not that far away from a census, but you know it won't in another year we'll be 5 years away from the census. So
right. And the what's interesting is that the data's there, it's just not organized very well. So some people have it, but it's like, how do you get it? Where do you find it? We were just looking at the city of Oshkosh. There were 6 different ways to measure how many people live in Oshkosh.
What?
Like, let's just pick one. I don't care which one actually, but if we as a community can just like, let's pick this way of measuring so that everybody isn't measuring in different ways and saying, oh, look, Oshkosh is like 3,000 more people than it says in this other place, so we had more of an impact or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Or less of an impact. So
how many people do we got in Oshkosh? Do we know?
I don't know, some 60-some-thousand people in Oshkosh, somewhere between 63 and 66,000, depending on who you talk to. And
see, I always thought we were at 68, so that even says that's not saying good.
Everybody moved to the suburbs of Oshkosh, right?
Well, you know, that's another thing about when you're talking about some of this stuff where I guess one way to look at it is we truly embrace the definition of community. And what I mean by that is community doesn't really have boundaries, and most of our communities don't know where the boundaries are. So like, I find that in Appleton all the time, because like Appleton, Grand Chute, Menasha, there's people that are just like, and then there's people with Appleton addresses, but they actually live in Grand Chute or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, oh man, that's confusing.
Yeah, I live close to Thrivent, and it depends on which house I look at to determine whether it's a Grand Chute house or an Appleton house.
Oh my God,
that's crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Okay, sorry. Let's keep going.
Yeah. So how I got back to this area is I was kind of headhunted in here in a paper company. So Apvion, if you know, was up in Appleton. They were looking for somebody to come and help them with their continuous improvement or their operational excellence program. And so I was at a utility company in Detroit. And I was doing work on the east side of Detroit, doing a bunch of work. And the problem there was that Detroit has all these different foundations, but they're not like, they weren't working together. So like the Skillman Foundation would do education work, but they would work at this one school. And then another foundation the United Way would go work in another community. So they had this scattershot approach. And we were trying to make a difference. And I felt like I was like a minnow in an ocean. So when I looked around and decided to come back to Wisconsin, I was like, oh, it's a smaller community. It's one where I can probably make a better impact. And there's less red tape, let's say, to get through. So I went from like a minnow in an ocean to a minnow in a Lake Winnebago. A little smaller body of water, but a chance to really make an impact. And I've noticed that the ability to make an impact in this area is much greater than the ability when you have a really huge place like Detroit.
I would also say that I think we do a really good job working across our boundaries.
Absolutely.
Like we're not. I don't feel like we're as caught up on a lot of things. Like our different communities, municipalities, they'll reach out and they do work across the line all the time.
Yeah, well, the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation and the United Way Oshkosh, they work together. They also work with Oshkosh Corporations Foundation. So they kind of pool their approach, and it's not like everybody's trying to focus on their own little thing and make an impact. They're trying to make a big difference. And so, a couple examples here. One thing that I helped found was called CI squared. So it's a math joke: community impact times continuous improvement, and then I put them together, and it's like squared. So CI squared. But what it is all these kind of people who do this continuous improvement work across the region, they go and they volunteer their time with nonprofits. So we've had over 55 people volunteer their time over the last 8 or so years in over like 80, I think it's 87 different interactions with nonprofits from Green Bay to Oshkosh.
Wow.
And so it's just a way for people to take their time and talent and apply it to a problem in the community. So I help the United Way Oshkosh here with their strategic plan. So another guy from Oshkosh, Craig Woolley, and myself, we went and helped them think through how to do that, and we didn't charge them for it. So that's one example. We made a difference. Imagine Fox Cities was another place where I spent a lot of time with sticky notes on a wall in the library for about 6 months, taking all the information we got. We had 88 conversations.
You were about that. Actually, I just had produced the episode or released the episode with Beth.
Oh, sweet.
For Appleton Engage. So that is like, so you were that person with the sticky notes.
I was
because
the sticky note guy.
She talked about that.
Oh, really? Yeah, I was a sticky note guy. And we just got a group of engaged, diverse people from the community to come in and kind of try to affinitize all the different information that we got so that we could come up with like what's the Fox Cities want. And so I got a chance to do that. That was fun. I was also on their data committee. That's kind of like oops, now I'm on the, Fox Valley data exchange. So we learned a little bit about how to structure data. Last thing that we've been working on is the Generative Local Community Institute. And so the idea for that is that we're trying to understand how we can help people flourish. And I'll talk about flourishing throughout this whole conversation because that's kind of what I'm about. And how do we first measure the flourishing, but then how do we actually figure out how to help people flourish without going back to people and asking them for money time after time after time? So a friend of mine used to be a president over at Miller, and he was like, can you create a flywheel that if I give you some money, you don't come back to me and ask for money every year to try to solve the same problems, but you can use that money to help people flourish. So now we're building a network of businesses as a cooperative. The cooperative makes money, and the money's used to help people. So that's what we're working on right now with Generative Local Community Institute.
Oh, that's a great idea. So kind of take that money, pool of money, invest it into something that makes money, and then go out and use that money.
Right. So then you're not asking, nonprofits nonprofits to help all the time. The community decides kind of what in the local space and the local geography, what they need and what they can do to help everybody thrive. And everybody gets a living wage. So that's a minimum expectation if you're part of this network.
Okay. So my only question would be in there is like, how do we make sure that our marginalized community members are being considered during that process? Because
right.
That's one of the things that, because what I heard was, there's a group of people making decisions, and I just am curious, how do we make sure that that group of people includes all our voices?
Absolutely. So first thing is there is a group that has started, and so that group is helping as volunteers at the moment to figure out what businesses to launch, where to launch them. But we've looked at Census Tracts 101 and 103 in the Appleton area, which are the place, they're the most diverse areas in the Census Tracts in Appleton, but also I think it's 67% of people do not have a living wage that live in those two census tracts. So the people who are going to own this business are people from the community. So
that's fabulous.
We're a nonprofit to help launch these, but we don't want to own them. We want communities to own them. So we have a pilot we're looking at in Appleton, and we also have one that's starting to emerge in Colorado.
Okay. All right, that's fabulous. If you weren't doing what you do professionally right now, which seems like a lot, what would you like to be doing?
Well, there's a couple things. One, if I won the lottery, I would actually invest in a generative local community prototype. So I would actually make sure that that was happening at a faster pace because I would have the money to do that. So we want to learn, we want to create a prototype because we're thinking of it like a franchise. Like if a community wants to flourish and I'm specifically interested in people who have barriers to flourishing. And, where I grew up in Milwaukee, a lot of people had barriers to flourishing.
Right.
And so I feel like I want to help make a difference to help people that might not get the chance to get a chance. So we want to learn how to do this so that we can take what we're learning and then apply it into many other communities. So that it's kind of like I don't like to say McDonald's, but it's like, oh, I want to help flourish. I want to create a set of businesses. How do I do it? Oh, look, here's a little package. It's a generative local community in a box, and I can start that up in my own community. So we're learning about how do we engage with communities. For example, the Zion Lutheran Church is looking at what they might redo with their space that they have in Appleton.
Right.
So we've been working with them to help them think through that process. Like, do they want to run businesses? Do they want housing there? How do they want to manage that space?
Right. I know that's one of the big conversations right now, and I really appreciate their thoughtfulness in our unhoused community and thinking about some solutions there. But I didn't know about the business aspect where in generative I'm just slaughtering that word. What's the term again?
Generative.
We
used to call it sustainable, and then you're like, well, we don't want to just hold on and sustain. We want to do something more. Right. So we define generative as flourishing together. If you and I flourish together, we're generative.
Well, I love the fact that you're using this word flourish. It has such a good connotation, such a good feeling when you say something's flourishing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Words matter.
If I didn't do that, I'd go travel. I like to travel. I've visited 57 countries.
Whoa.
My goal is to hit 100 until I realized how hard it is to hit 100.
Facts.
And I'm going to my 58th in a couple weeks. So
where are you going?
Going to Panama with my son for spring break.
Oh, that sounds fabulous.
So the two of us are going to get a chance to kind of check out the canal and check out that area. I've not been to Panama before, obviously. And I'm trying to think the last one we did before that. Oh, it was Bahamas.
Bahamas?
I don't like boats, so we talked about that a little before the show. And I'm like, I probably got to hit a darn cruise if I want to like get 10 countries in like 2 weeks or something like that. So
I'm guessing you're going to have to cross some water.
Yeah, I know. I think so. But that's probably one of the ways to do it. So I've lived in 4 countries. Yeah, including this one. So I'm trying to count them. So I lived in Europe for about 6 years in 4 different countries.
What's your biggest takeaway from being able, we're lucky enough on the Kosh that we do get people who've moved here who are immigrants, and we get to have these conversations, or people who are first generation who are here and their families aren't from here. But let's do it the other way. What's it like when you are from here and you go live these other places and then you come back? What's your lens seen? What have you seen?
Yeah, well, I really like Europe, and I think what I like about it is there's a depth of relationship that people have when you have relationships with people. So in America, a lot of it's on the surface until you find your people. And in Europe, people are just much more, I guess they're deep and they're engaged and you're right in their system. So I really like that. Now, I think of myself as an expatriate to the Fox cities. So like to me, up north in Wisconsin is like Cedarburg and higher, because I lived in Milwaukee. Right?
Yeah. So it's I love how yes.
Yeah. So it's like I'm up. This is like way up north, and so what I noticed, at least in Appleton, where I live, is there's like 3 types of people. There's people who have always lived in Appleton, and they kind of have their little groups and their cohorts. There are people who come back. So one or both of the people are from the area.
Boomerangs.
And they come back, and it's like they want to raise their kids here. And like when we came in and they were trying to headhunt me, it's like, oh, this is a great place to raise children. I'm like, yeah, right. I'm sure everybody says that when they do it, but it really is a good place to raise family. So one or of them come back, and so sometimes they engage, and sometimes they're in their own little thing. And then there's like the expats, like people who are not from the area. They come in here, and it's like I notice a lot of my friends are also expats. Like they're also people that are not actually were born in the community, and so I noticed that when I went to Europe. Right, there's expatriate communities where you end up hanging out with people like yourself from the United States or something. I remember I was living in England around Christmas, and I was by myself on Christmas Day, and I'm like, this is horrible. I don't want to always just be alone on Christmas. And I ended up watching a movie, TV in England, and it was Fargo.
Bruh.
And Fargo was like, oh my God, these are my people. They speak like me. They talk like me, you betcha.
Oh my God.
And it just made me feel like a sense of home. So there are definitely pieces like that.
That is cool. You're right though. I like your breakdown of the 3 types, and that seems pretty accurate. I find I have so many conversations with our boomerang community, as we refer to them as the people who they might have went to school or college and took off while they were younger in their young 20s, and then they go do whatever, and then when it's time to get to the family, they boomerang back here, or
right.
Maybe it's not even family for whatever reason that they come back here. And I talk to a lot of people that do that.
Yeah, we have two boys, one that's at University of Wisconsin, one still in high school. And my wife and I are always like, so are they coming back, or are they like going out, or are they going out and coming back? And so we hypothesize what's going to happen with them.
Oh,
I want to like travel everywhere. I like the home base of the Fox Cities or this area, but I also, obviously, if I've gone to 57 countries, I want to see other places and experience other things. And at least and when it's winter here and we have that dusting of snow, we should be someplace warmer.
Oh yes. Well, my daughter, she dipped, and she's doing her thing, and we always tease her that there's a good chance that she might come back, and she's like, I'm not coming back. But I think everyone says that. So
That's right.
We'll actually see what ends up happening at the end of the day. What else I like that you said was, since you are from Milwaukee, and I do mean Milwaukee, for those that know. That, why is it that everybody down in Milwaukee thinks like coming to Oshkosh or Appleton or Green, well, really Oshkosh and Appleton are the two I'm going to reference. They think like it's literally Alaska and it's a 4-hour drive.
Well, it's funny because, so we live pretty close to each other. We talked about that before when we were from Milwaukee, or we are from Milwaukee. And one of my first vacations was a weekend to Appleton.
Oh, for real? Bruh.
Yeah. So I was like 8 years old or something like that, and there was a shortstop on the Appleton Foxes that was like 5'7" or something like that. So he's a shortstop, and most people are tall, and I was not some tall. I'm still not some tall person, and so I think my parents were like, "Look, there's a guy who can actually play baseball and is actually in the minor leagues," and he eventually made it to the White Sox and played for a while, and so. We came here for the weekend to watch him play baseball at the old Appleton Foxes field over by Miller, and the Goodwill that's over there.
Oh.
My kid actually plays soccer there sometimes when he plays Appleton West, I think.
See, I didn't even know about this field.
Yeah, it's the Appleton West soccer field.
Okay. You ready to jump into the first segment?
Sure.
First segment is called What in the World is Going On With? That's where you start with the phrase, what in the world? And then you tell us what's on your mind.
What in the world is going on with restaurant prices?
Bruh. Facts.
Man. So if my kids get all A's in school, in college or in high school, we let them pick a place to go eat. And so one place they like to go is Sushi Lover, which is like, holy man, you got to go to that like at lunchtime during the week, or else it's like $40 a person or something like that.
Facts.
So I was like, okay, we'll try something different. So we went out for fondue.
Oh.
And I was like, I think next time I'm going to go make my own fondue at home. Because, it was like $300 or something like that for a lunch for the 4 of us.
I was thinking you were better off as Sushi Lovers.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was trying to do a pivot because I'm actually I call it value orientated. Other people call me cheap, but
Value oriented.
value oriented. Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, what's that about? And then I went out and got a fish fry last week, not this Friday, but the weekend before. $29 for perch.
Yeah. Bruh.
I'm used to that like $7.99 all you can eat, and that's gone.
Well, that ain't perch.
Probably ain't perch either, but
Right.
it might not even be fish.
Wait,
Lord knows, but
I got a place.
oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah, they do flounder all you can eat.
Oh man, so I mean, I guess these prices are just kind of out of control, and I think it's been after this whole inflation thing, and somehow they forgot that like there was some deflation or something, and all of a sudden everything is like expensive. So
yeah, it's a rough trip. I've just come to the realization, like, if me and my wife are gonna go out and eat, and we're going to tip and have cocktails, it's $100.
right.
That's it. It's just gonna be $100. It's like, it's not even, you can't even play with it. It's not gonna be less than it's gonna be $100. If you add some appetizers in there, it's gonna be $115. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you go to Subway now, and it's like the new song is like $9.50 foot long. It's like, where's that $5 foot long that I used to eat all the time? So,
yeah, no, that thing gone.
No, it's gone. That's terrible.
I feel your pain in that. As someone who does end up doing a lot of business lunches and whatnot, like, I've had to make a rule. I made a rule this year, starting at the beginning of the year, and I just told, like, the people that I end up doing lunch with, both my friends and my professional associates, I just told them everything's Dutch. Period. It's Dutch. They don't feel obligated. I don't feel obligated. Dutch. Everybody's international in Timber's lunch world.
I had this friend, so talking about value oriented. So when I lived out in Boston, and my buddy of mine also, he was from Chicago, and we used to go to Frank's Steakhouse once a week, and we'd order 3 medium Cokes instead of 2 large Cokes, because we calculated the ounces was cheaper to buy 3 mediums than it was to buy like 2 large. And we did that for months and months, and all of a sudden they changed the price, and we immediately went to the 2 larges because it was cheaper.
Bruh. I'm not gonna lie, Jason, we could be friends, because I get down just like that.
Right.
And I'm gonna have to tell my wife, don't be calling me cheap no more. I am value oriented.
Absolutely.
Value oriented. This is a beautiful term. I might get a T-shirt.
I love it.
All right. Well, what in the world is going on with this young child missing, young Elijah from Two Rivers? That's just, I don't get it. I'm super sad. Always sad about anything that happens to young children. I'm not so sad about Bosco, the podcast dog, who's eating his bone on the stand again. Bosco, stop that. And I'm super sad about this young man, but the thing you got to keep coming back to is, how did they not know he was missing for such a long amount of time? Then that just makes me feel like the whole thing feels hinky. It just doesn't feel right. The math is not mathing to me in this story. And I am absolutely sending the most universal energy, hoping that this young child shows back up. God bless. But I'm sure not liking how this is the narrative that's coming together about this whole thing. Yeah, and I'm in my feelings about it.
That's a tough one, right? And especially when it's a smaller town too.
Right.
So, I mean, if it's like, I shouldn't say it, but like Milwaukee is like, oh, okay, yeah. It's different. I mean, you're taking the 23 bus and you're going downtown and all that, and it's a little different, a smaller town.
And I just feel like with technology on our side, like, you can't move around without showing up on somebody's something.
Right.
There's rings everywhere, there's cameras everywhere, I just feel like you really don't have freedom of movement without showing up somewhere.
You would think, right?
That's what I'm
Absolutely.
thinking, but
Yeah.
you know, I don't know a whole lot about how Trivers gets down.
Right.
You know,
I was just reading an article about San Francisco and homeless. There's a lot of homeless camps, and there was this whole thing where this guy like beat up this homeless guy, and then the homeless guy took a pipe and beat the guy back up. But they had like 5 or 6 different perspectives from the gas station, from the laundromat, from somebody's ring, and they could kind of piece what really happened together, and it was different than what the guy that got hit by the pipe was like, oh, I'm a victim, but actually he had been like all over this other guy in the first place.
right?
So it's like you would think, just like you said, that there's enough surveillance around. When I lived in London, there was and this was back in 2001. I lived in London, and there was a square in London called Leicester Square. It's kind of like where all the movies happen. You know, they do the movie premieres and all that kind of stuff. They said at that point, every space of that square was covered by some camera. And you could actually watch it, the internet in 2001, and see what was going on there.
Oh wow, that's deep. So, at the end of the day, you know, I'm like I said, I'm sending universal positive energy that we can find this young man. You know, wishing the best to our law enforcement to piece this all together. But I'm just not liking how this narrative is coming together. It just doesn't feel good. Like,
Yeah.
it's not a good, hopeful deal.
Yeah, thoughts and prayers for the
Facts.
kid. Yep.
All right. Next segment. Next segment is called 21 Questions. There are not 21
Oh.
questions.
How many are there?
Well, there's enough.
20?
Yeah, well, you know, there's a few.
Don't go over 21 and you bust.
Wait a minute. See, all we got to do, there's not 21 questions, but there's the opportunity for 21 answers because these are really good in-depth questions. All right?
Yeah.
Ready to jump in?
Okay.
Okay, first question. What are you grateful for?
Well, every day I actually write down for the last 8 years what I've been grateful for. So yesterday I was grateful. The 3 things I was grateful for. One, I met with Brian Pirtle, if you know him from Lawrence University. And so we met for kind of like appetizers. And so we got a chance to catch up. That was great. I was grateful for DJing last night. So I actually DJ a bar, and I'll give a shout out to them later. So I was grateful to have that opportunity to kind of remix music and DJ and so on and so forth. And then I was also, I went up to NeighborWorks in Green Bay, and they do a whole bunch of housing and affordable housing. And so I was grateful they gave me a tour yesterday, kind of all the stuff they're doing in the Green Bay area. So I was grateful to learn more about what they're doing and all the great work that they're doing there. But I've been doing this gratefulness routine for about 8 years. So every morning when I get up, the first thing I say is I put my hands up in the air and I go, today's going to be a great day. I say it out loud. And when I say it out loud, my subconscious tries to make what I said in my conscious make happen.
Yes.
And so normally I have great days. Sometimes I don't. And if I think I'm not going to have a great day, some days, like one day my father passed, and I'm like, okay, this is not going to be a great day. I put my hands up and I say, today's going to be a great day somehow. I figure out a way to make something great about this day, even if it's a rough day. So I used that somehow in the last 8 years about 7 times. So once a year, I have a pretty bad upcoming day. But generally, I'm really grateful for, I got a book of these gratefulness that I do every day. So
I love that. That is fabulous. And I love that you are taking control of the universe. You are imposing your will on the universe.
yes.
What motivates you?
Well, so when I was at the utility company in Detroit, I wanted to get more effective at getting work done. And so I asked if I could have a personal coach. And so they gave me a personal coach for a year. And I knew the person, and I knew she'd kick my butt and get me to get stuff done. And she's like, I don't need to kick your butt. I need to figure out what you're about. You need to figure out who you are and what you really want to do. And that got me to the point where I think my role is to help people flourish to their full potential. So every time I meet someone, I'm hoping to help their journey by something I can do to help them, and so that they can reach their full potential. So I know that a lot of people struggle with flourishing. Many people focus just on the economic version of that. So it's like, oh, I got to make my money, make my Benjamins, and blah, blah, blah. But a lot of people like neglect their mental health, their emotional health, their spiritual health, their physical health. So what motivates me is helping people work through that journey for themselves. And so I know that I can do that. I know I can help people. I work on it myself. I grade myself. I probably got to get more physically fit because I like fish fries and other stuff like that. But, had an old fashioned the other day. So I mean, it's like, yeah, I gotta figure that out. But people struggle with that. And so the Generative Local Community Institute work, we're building a model of flourishing, and we got definitions, and we got a measurement system, and we're trying to help people think through these issues. And so that's what motivates me every day.
What grounds you?
Well, first would be where I came from. So I grew up in a rougher part of Milwaukee, and I've seen many people not make it out of the neighborhood, and they follow into a narrative. And I've also been able to travel and see things. And so a little story. So I went to South Africa in the 90s, right after apartheid had kind of ended. And so we went to a township. In a township, basically, black and colored people had to live in townships, and they were not allowed to go to school. It was against the law to educate children during apartheid. And so we went up to this township north of Cape Town, and there was a German group of people who had actually sent shipping containers to the township. And so these shipping containers were converted into schools, like ad hoc schools. And so we had a chance to go to one of these schools and visit and talk to people. And what amazed me was the joy of the children in this school, dancing and celebrating and accepting. And I'm like, holy man, I think my journey is a tough journey. It's nothing compared to what other people might experience. I also went to India, and so just people are on the streets destitute, and that's poverty. I work on poverty and have worked on poverty in this area, and actually Appleton is one of the lowest poverty rates in the nation. It's in the top 5, actually, for lowest poverty.
Wow.
But poverty in America is a cell phone and a car in many cases, and it's completely different than South Africa township, where there were 1 million people, and all you got in the township was a toilet and a piece of land and a water faucet, and the rest was up to you. So most people had just, this was after apartheid, and they still had like tin and aluminum or whatever they could scrounge up to kind of put a shelter in place. And I'm like, okay, that grounds me. My wife's Polish. My mother-in-law still lives in a 400 square foot apartment, which my wife and her twin sister and the two of them lived in until she was in her 20s. And it's like, there's a little difference between that and the privilege that I have for both being in the U.S. and I'm a white male. That actually gives me like 2 other chips for sure. But just that's what grounds me.
What does success look like to you?
Well, again, helping other people flourish and helping them see what they might not see. So back in the day, I had an administrative assistant. Those used to be something that people got from time to time, and I don't think they exist anymore, as far as I've seen. So about, it was about 15 years ago, Tia was my administrative assistant, and she had tons of capability. And, and that's not a great job, and it's not one that I have a good skill set in either. So I really appreciate that type of work. But I could see that she had capability to become a Six Sigma black belt. And she looked at me and she would have pressed that bruh button, right? Every time said, there's no way, blah, 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 blah. And then about 2 years ago, she sent me an email. She goes, you know what? I got my Six Sigma black belt. Bruh. So she was like, thank you for putting the seed in there to help believe in me, and so on and so forth. And she's gone on and done great work, and so on and so forth. So just having that ability to help people think through what they're capable of, because many people, myself, put limitations on myself. And don't realize the capability I have. And so I keep working on that.
Oh, yes, absolutely. What irritates you?
Well, very similarly, I get pissed off kind of when people treat other people poorly because of their status. So I've seen this in corporate America where people are like, oh, well, they're just like, they're the janitor. Or like when somebody's serving at a nonprofit event, like the food, the rubber chicken that you get or whatever, at that event, that person's working their butt off and most people just totally ignore them. And so I try to say thank you to people as thank you for what you do. Thank you for your service. These are not jobs that most people choose to spend their entire life doing, but they're in a situation, and I don't like it. Irritates me when people think, oh, well, they're lazy. They don't, if they just put their bootstraps up and then they'll be fine. Come on, everybody's in a situation, and we don't understand the stories behind the stories. So let's treat all people with respect.
Facts. I can't stress that enough. What scares you?
Well, I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm cursed to achieve a mission, and that mission is to help people flourish and create systems that allow people to flourish. And so I do a lot of work and a lot of talking, but I probably got to do some writing, or I got to make sure that the stuff that I'm talking about or the stuff that I'm been working on, that I can actually help complete that mission. And I'm not getting younger. That every day is another day. And like I DJ'd last night, it's like, well, I'm not DJing until 2 a.m. anymore because that's just not going to work. So not sharing what I learned, not communicating that would be kind of really something that scares me, is like I've unfinished work. And so I want to make sure either I have it set up so it can be finished, or, maybe someone will just throw in the recycle bin, but that would scare me.
How do you, well, let me go back. What recharges your soul?
I like to have reflection experiences. And so I try to build those into my life. I've done silent retreats before. Yeah, I went to Barcelona on my own. That was really rough last year, but I had some time then that I could reflect. And every year I have a group of alumni. So I went to MIT out in Boston, and there's a group of us that went through this dual degree graduate program. And so 30 of them were guys, 15 were ladies, and the 30 guys try to get together every year, or a subset of them, to go see the colors. And so it gives me time to reflect. It's the same pattern, so we do it once a year. But it also, I don't know if it recharges, maybe this is the blend between scares and recharges. A friend of mine, David, was there this year. And so one of my friends had said, we're not getting any younger. We should probably go to these events. And so that was the difference between me hanging out or actually going and driving over to the Petoskey, Michigan area so we could do this. I said, okay, I'll go. Well, we went to Mackinac Island, which is a nice little trip from there, and we climbed up to, there's like a fort up at the top and all. And I was talking to David. I hadn't seen him for like 10 years. And we had a great time. And then in November, David had started having a hard time walking. It's like at home. And he's like, something's wrong with my leg. Well, fast forward, he actually has brain cancer. And the brain cancer is affecting the stem of his brain, which is affecting his ability to walk. And he is decelerating quickly. And so I'm probably going to go out there to see him. He lives out in Seattle, because he's got 15 months to live on average. And so it's like the grounding and the finding, kind of recharging my soul and scare me, is like, oh, wow, I have to continue to connect with my friends. I have to make sure that I have this ability to leave whatever I need to leave for my family and for the world. And Lord knows if I got time. And we're like, David might be the first to go of our friends. And then the guy that said, hey, we should come, Dan, he like had a heart attack. And like since then, so it's it's like we're starting to hit the dominoes, and I hope I'm not another one of them dominoes. But I mean, we just have to figure out how we can be in communion with each other, how we can do things together and do it with authenticity.
Facts. How do you define love?
I think for me, it's just doing things for other people and not like expecting I'm going to get something back. So it's not about me. It's just about the giving process. I think it's as simple as that for me. I wish I could do it as effectively, but you know, there's a guy that used to live here that wrote a book called Modeling God. And he also talked about a definition of trying to make everything have a definition. And I think some of it came from like me thinking about, well, how do I define all these different things? How do I define mental flourishing? How do I define this? So to me, love is this definition. Giving to others, but never expecting anything back.
What is the most memorable life lesson you learned from a parent, a guardian, a mentor?
So I'm going to go to a guy that I used to work for in the utility company named Ron May, and he was my boss. He's the best boss I ever had. He got me that one personal coach for a year, so that was that was great. But I was like, we had to go to this construction conference. We didn't have to, but we chose to go to this construction conference, and I was doing construction at the utility, so I was running the projects for him, and he had kind of the whole thing. And whenever you would do a presentation at this construction conference, you had to have some way to show and demonstrate that you should come to our session versus going to someone else's session. And so one year I was flown to Dallas to be in a movie. So like these people like produced a movie, and I was supposed to be in the movie. I was in the movie, and I had to say these 4 lines, and then blah blah blah. And it was not for our own stuff, but it was for a group I was involved in for this construction thing. And I'm like, I'm not gonna go like figure out how to do a movie. I mean, that's going to cost a lot of money. They had like all, you guys, you have like all this gear and stuff, man. It's like probably hundreds of thousands of dollars in your house of gear to do this podcast. Well, they were doing the same thing in Dallas. And so I'm like, I want to go like lo-fi, but I want to make a difference. I'd like to write a rap song about construction. Bruh. And I'd like to perform it at the conference. And he's like, okay. I'm like, what? It's like, we're a utility going to a construction conference. And so a guy on my team was a DJ from Jamaica. He was a cost engineer. And so he came over on Memorial Day, and we tried to figure out the beats. And he like, this was before I was doing my DJ stuff. And so I learned from him. He was doing some beats. I wrote this song. We come from the D that stands for DTE, the company that makes electricity, and all the way down. And so we created this I had this guy who was my discipline engineering manager, and he was like 60 years old, Gino De Palma. He was this, Italian guy, but he had woo in his strengths, right? And so he'd like to do it. So we put him up there on the front, and he starts doing this really boring presentation up there for all these people as we're trying. There's 800 people in this room in Orlando, and he's doing this boring presentation and blah, blah, blah. And then I walk in, I go like, Gino, this is not how we do it in the D. Give me a beat. And so I got this Cabrera Detroit thing on. I put my, Eminem look and so on and so forth. And the cost engineer rolls out his DJ stuff, and we just start jamming on this thing, including Gino does 2 lines of the rap like in the middle when they think he's like this, this like boring guy. And then we end it. I drop the mic, and then he goes back to his boring presentation, right? And it was the ability to have this boss believe in me taking this trip, doing something way out of the box. The average, person at this thing was about like 70-year-old white guy listen to a rap song from from Detroit. But it was just the ability to have someone believe in me. That's what, is the most memorable kind of life lesson, is how do I enable that for my kids, for everybody I meet, to kind of give them that opportunity to really live into their uniqueness and into their flourishing.
That I wish there was some video of this.
There is. I'm not going to share it. And I'll tell you 2 things. One, as my dry run, I rapped Ford Field the same year as Jay-Z and Justin Timberlake did. So I put that out there, so I got that. And then when I watched my video, I'm like, I'm impressed at the performance characteristics of people that go out like and go to the AMA awards or whatever and do that.
Right.
I'm like, here's this kind of slightly chubby, slightly balding white dude trying to rap, and I thought I was giving it all, and I looked like I was just that. So I know my game's got to be totally on when I'm performing, because I think I'm doing it, but and then I watch it like, oh, okay, yeah, I probably should have lost 20 pounds.
How did it go over with the crowd? Because I got to ask these questions now.
Well, it was good, and we had this. We had used a Beastie Boys back, and we used a Jay-Z. We had mixed some stuff together, and so we had found all these other people from Detroit that were there. We got them all T-shirts, and we had it at the middle of this thing. We had a break in the middle of the rap, and they all came up to the front and started like cheering and getting everything going on, and we got the crowd up and dancing and everything like that. So it was pretty cool. It was definitely.
Oh yeah, y'all put some thought into this.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Okay, awesome. Now that is fabulous. I'm not gonna lie, you got me on that one. I didn't see that coming.
I've been working on another rap song, but I haven't done it yet.
Well, I'm just gonna tell you now, I can't rap, so
nor can I.
Okay. Well, you know what? That was a fabulous 21 questions. Okay. Ready for the next segment?
Sure.
We're moving into word association. This is your opportunity where we're going to say a word and you're going to tell us what comes to your mind. We have a tradition here on the Kosh, and that is we start off with the same word every time, and that word is the word of unity. It is the word that brings us all together. It is the word that when you usually say it, there's a smile that will come across your face, and that word is food.
The first thing that comes to mind is Balitreri's pizza. You know it?
I see, I'm not gonna lie, when I was in the mill, our pizza of choice was Ned's.
Oh, Ned's, yeah. Ned's on Capitol.
There was another one on Villard. That was the one my mom swore by. Ned's pizza,
especially when they got those pepperonis that like curled up and stuff like
facts.
that. Yeah. So Balitreri's it's in Wauwatosa, and ever since I was a kid, we used to go there. And it's got flat pizza. It's similar to Cranky Pat's, or I guess Pierre's now. Is that what they're called? Frank, whatever the one was called in Appleton. So it's got that flat pizza. It's always a cheese, sausage, mushroom, pepperoni, black olive, and it's a large. And this large is like, it's not like your Pizza Hut large. It's like a double, triple large. And so always that. And I don't eat the whole thing myself.
Does it still exist?
Oh yeah, it does. There's actually 2 Balistreris, but the right one is the one on, I think it's 68th Street.
Oh.
The other one's on like Bluemond.
Okay.
68th Street, right off Wells, I think, in Milwaukee. The second thing with food is in the Generative local community work and business network, we're looking at actually launching a food network of sorts of businesses. So we're looking at how do you grow food? How do you put an incubator type kitchen in? How do you do a restaurant? How do you do grocery? Because those are things everybody, I guess everybody doesn't need a restaurant, but hopefully our prices will be lower than a $29 fish fry. But anyway, so the idea is we're looking at this food hub development as a way to really bring food back to the community. And so it's not McDonald's or it's not some big chain. It's something local.
I'm going to try this again. Generative.
I'm
working on it.
Like generative AI, like they stole our word.
I'm sure the AI would have feelings about that. Cocktail or beer?
Or beer? Okay. If I got to choose, then I'm going to go beer.
Well, you don't have to choose. You can throw in some extras if you got some difference.
There's brandy old fashioned sweet. That's the cocktail. Some people are sour whiskey, but that's one of the 4 permutations of an old fashioned that you have to have in Upper Wisconsin. So I try to, if you're going to eat local, you got to try to drink local. And so for me, it's also beer. I try to drink local as well. So when I lived in Michigan, I drank Michigan beer. When I moved to Wisconsin, I kind of converted over to Wisconsin beer. So Stone Arch, I like their vanilla porter. Tiriana, I used to live in Lake Mills, one of those 29 places I lived. They got a brewery there. They got a good porter. So I actually had one of them last night. Non-local, there's a place in Holland, Michigan called New Holland Brewery, and they make this dragon's milk. So you can get that in Myers.
Bruh.
Dragon's Milk, but it's only like 11%.
Only
11%, but it's good. And then in Denver, there's a place, Oscar Blues, and they got a thing called Old Chub, and I just like that beer too. It's yummy.
Shop local.
Yes. So in the generative local community work, we have a set of principles, and one of those principles is called act as local as possible. So for me, it's about shopping as local as I possibly can. I still have to fight the Amazon, in the family, but I try to make sure that when I'm doing things, I'm buying things local, in this case, beer, and that go to local purveyors. I like the Blue Moon. I think it's Blue Moon down in Appleton on College Avenue. Some kind of blue something.
I don't know.
Yeah, so I like to shop there. That's a cool place to go.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, but I don't know the name particularly of
Got
it.
some blue in it. I thought it's got some moon in it, but it's not beer.
It does, right. Well, that's the first place you go to. If you say Blue Moon around these parts, people are thinking, can you put an orange in that?
Yeah.
Concert.
Well, I've been to a lot of concerts and I like music. So the coolest concert was U2 at Camp Randall. I bought the tickets like the day before the concert. They said, "Oh, we got a couple extra tickets like left over." And I was in Janesville, Wisconsin, at the J.C. Penney, and I went to the Ticketmaster line. There was nobody at J.C. Penney at like 8 a.m. besides me, and got in there, got my tickets, 4th row front. Wow. Yeah. And so, 70,000 or 100, I don't know how many thousand people were there, but being in the front, and then it was Big Audio, Dynamite, Public Enemy, and U2.
Wow, bro.
That was awesome. My dad was friends with the Milwaukee Journal guy that wrote for concerts. So he'd like get tickets and he'd be like, I don't need to go to this. So like I went to the INXS Kick tour and I was again in front of Michael Hutchins's girlfriend, like a row ahead of her.
Wow.
And so that was pretty cool to do. Also, when I was in England, I went to a couple things. In England, I guess we have them here now too, but they have these like multiple day festivals. And so you go camp there. And back in 1996, I was still young enough to go like camp for 3 days at a concert. And at that event, I mean, it was like Alanis Morissette, then Ice-T, then Moby, then Rage Against the Machine, and then Prodigy.
I was gonna say that had to be Ice-T during the body count phase.
Yeah, it was
Rock and Ice-T.
Yeah, it was Rock and Ice-T. And so he was, it's just like being able to see like all these groups at the same time. I saw Underworld, if you know them. They're like electronic band. I was going to see a different band and they sucked, and so then went over to Underworld. Well, they actually recorded that concert while I was there. So it was pretty cool to be at that one too.
I would have loved to have caught Moby when he was in his prime. I can only imagine. That was probably fire.
So you're a Moby fan?
I think he makes good music.
Yeah, back in the early 90s, he used to go to I'd go to all these CD shops, and I had thousands of CDs at one point. And there used to be like electronica, techno, and Moby. He had his own category. It was awesome.
Well, he was kind of, he was a little different off the,
Well, and when this was before he hit the Play. It was before Play. And Play was, the one that kind of was his breakout. And he'd go up there and he'd be like, I wrote this like when I broke up with like my girlfriend and now I hate her. And then he'd go sing a song. He would there was no emotion in him or anything when he'd say something. It was just pretty crazy.
Streaming.
Well, I'm currently watching one of the seasons of Ozark. I think it's the third one that we're currently on. So we're going through the Ozark phase, and that's because we actually watched Inventing Anna, which was about that woman Anna Delvey.
Oh yeah.
And so we were watching that, and I'm like, I know that actress, and that actress is the Ruth in Ozark, and it's like, oh, okay. So I made the connection. So we went back to start watching Ozark again. So that's a pretty good one.
Yeah, that Inventing Anna, like I didn't make it all the way through, but I made it through. I think I'm a couple episodes from finishing it. Man,
Yeah.
that's some baller stuff she was doing.
She knew how to do that. She could, she understood.
It's funny how people just, I feel like people want to believe,
Right.
right? You want to believe you're associated with importance.
Yeah, I once read this. I read a book in that was written in the 1940s, and there's this guy called Yellow Kid Weil, and it was his autobiography, and it was after I think he was out of jail, but he had figured out in the teens and 20s, 1910, 1920, all these ways to scam people, and just he'd be like, I'm a king of this country in Europe, and I'd come in and he'd do the same thing as Inventing Anna, and he would like make millions of dollars just scamming people because people just assume. They just assume that, person is, it goes the other way too, right? So, I mean, people are treated poorly sometimes because they're assumed in a different way too. So
right.
It's good to have some weird accent and come from Europe.
Anna would never fly in the mill.
That's right.
I'm just going to throw that out there. That would never play well in the mill. All right.
That was funny.
Entrepreneurship.
Well, at one point, there was a magazine article that I got in for intrapreneurship. So intrapreneurship is this concept of being an entrepreneur in like a big company. And I had worked in a bunch of different big companies. So applying new ideas and thoughts were one of the things that I was doing at General Motors when I worked in the corporate strategy department. I tried to convince General Motors to open an OnStar cafe. So open a cafe where they could actually test all their technology out, but do it in a way that would actually do coffee. And I'm like, so I'm talking to like these executives, and they're like, you want to do what? It's like, yeah, I want to go to the Starbucks conference and learn all about this and see if we can create this set of cafes around the United States and the world. And they turned me down. So, but the other thing was we're starting up the Generative Local Community Institute. So that's like one of those things. I started up CI Squared I talked about, and now I'm starting up the Fox Valley Data Exchange. So I like that startup mentality of helping to create something where you solve a real problem, work that problem, and get it up and running and going, and then kind of hand it off to the next set of people. So I like that innovation space.
I bet you those executives wish they would have listened to you now. How much business gets done in Starbucks?
That's right.
Now I'm just saying that environment of super yummy coffees and innovation, like they hold hands, they hang out together, they're best friends.
And then there's a concept called the World Cafe. It's like a facilitated tool where people actually make it look like a cafe, and then you actually have conversations and dialogue and so on. And so this thing came out about this time, and I was reading in a book, and I happened to be in San Francisco at the time, and I noticed that the person that created this was like from the area. So I called them up because we had phones from my hotel. Called them and said, "Hey, I'd like to talk about this World Cafe type of thing." And they're like, "Oh, come! I live in Sausalito. Why don't you come up to our place?" And so I hung out with them, learned about this. Said we need to apply this inside the company, so we can use cafes as a way to help people just talk in there. Because the water cooler was going away. And so how do we create a space where people could talk and then also talk across countries? Because GM had stuff in Australia and China and Germany and in the US, and they're all like designing cars. Like maybe you guys should all talk together, save a little money.
Right.
But
diversity.
Yeah, diversity can be described in many different ways. And so I'll give a couple perspectives. One is like diversity of thought. So humans take in like, I think it's 12 or 15 million bits per second of information, and we process like 32 bits per second. So we got all this stuff, you got your pet and your dog, and you got a Grinch, and you got all these different things going on, but I'm only able to process like 32. And if you find another person like me who, did the same types of things, they have 32, but like if you take their 32 and my 32, it's probably 34. But if you take someone with a completely different perspective, their 32, they're looking at something different. and I'm looking at something different, then together we get 64 of the 12 million. So the more diversity there is in a group, the more you can get better perspectives to get better decisions. The second one that's coming up for me is launching this data exchange. It's really easy to put bias into data. So you end up that the narratives are reinforced by the way the data is structured or the way things go on. So we're looking at like creating a very diverse group of people that are part of this action advisory committee. Hey, if you want to be part, let me know. But
Did that just happen?
I never thought about that, but I mean, but we're getting a broad base of people to ensure that we don't build bias into the way we structure our local data. So that's the second one. And then I've had this opportunity that's just ending. I'm in this holistic visions program. So it was an invite-only global program. And the work that we're doing was about redefining families and communities for the future. So what would that look like? So we have this group. And so there's a person that's living in Portugal that's German, a person that lives in Belgium that's Spanish, a person that's from Antigua that's lives in the Netherlands, a person from the Netherlands that lives in the Netherlands, a person that was born in Liberia that lives in England, pretty close to where I used to live, a person from Kenya, and then Sarah, who's from Uganda. So first of all, that's a whole, and another person from Oconomowoc. so it's like two people from the United States or from Wisconsin.
You know what? If you said Oconomowoc from someone who's not from here, it does sound like they're international.
Exactly. So then I meet Sarah, right? And so I'm in this group with Arlette from Antigua, Sarah, and myself. We're in a small group and there's 12 of us. And there's 144 holistic vision program. So we're starting to talk, and I'm like, tell me about your background. I came from Wisconsin. I come from Wisconsin, and Arlette was talking. And then Sarah's like, well, I came from like northern Uganda, and my father died when I was young, and so my mom was pressured to sell me for cows at 13, and she said no at 13. I'm like, okay, that's a little different reality than my lived experience, right? No at 14. Finally, yes at 15. So at 15, she was sold for a set of cows in northern Uganda. And then she was in an abusive relationship. And so she wanted to get out of that abusive relationship. She had 2 kids. And she had to, you have to give the cows back if you want to end the relationship. Well, they had eaten the cows and the cows were gone. So they had to pay that back. Well, she was not allowed to see her children anymore. The children were now part of the family of the male Ugandan family, right? And so her mission is twofold now. So what happens is, and it's not unlike what's going on here with the Monthlies project, but when girls have their periods, they don't have any sanitary, they don't have the disposable sanitary in northern Uganda, so they make renewable ones. And so reusable ones. So they sew them and they make it reusable. So I worked with her from a generative local community perspective to set up a business plan to help her figure out how to buy these sewing machines and then hire people who could get a living wage so that they could create these reusable pads. So because what happens is when this happens, you don't have a pad, the girls stop going to school because they're embarrassed, and then ultimately get sold for cows. So I'm like, that's a diversity of perspective that I never would have had.
Oh my God, yes. I'm speechless.
Right. And so she's now doing, education in northern Uganda. She's got the sewing machines going. She's got a business running. People who are from that area are now getting a living wage. So they're independent of this whole kind of socio-cultural situation. And I'm like, that's, for me, a diversity that helps me understand different perspectives that I would never have imagined.
Bruh. To say the least.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm hoping to go to Uganda to hang out with her sometime in the future. We met in Barcelona. We all got together in Barcelona for a week. That's when I said I went by myself. We went for this conference to kind of get together to help create our new thing called a Famunity. It's the unity of family and community.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a smooth turn.
It's going to be in a book.
Is it?
Yep.
Okay. I'll wear that t-shirt. Next segment. It's called the Kosh Hidden Gems. This is your opportunity to share a hidden gem with the Kosh listeners. When we say a hidden gem, it could be something that no one knows about or very few people know about, or maybe it's something everybody knows about, but they don't know this particular details about that particular gem. So,
Wow, I hadn't thought about that second way of thinking about it. But now I know. When I'm listening to your podcast, I'll think about gems that I see that are hidden.
That's right.
Great. So one of them is Boardlandia. If you know, it's a board game business in Appleton. And I'm a board gamer, so Boardlandia is a really cool place to get board games if you like to play board games. And so I've been playing board games all my life, and they're, I used to play strategic ones. Now I play, I'm getting down to even playing card games, and I lose them all the time to my family. But Boardlandia is a great place to pick up games. You can get them online. You can get them there. You can play games there. You go in the back with your family or with your friends and go play one, or just kind of show up and play games with other people. So
that's kind of cool.
Then the other one's the Vaudette. So the Vaudette is in Kaukauna, and it's the Vaudette Theater officially, but it's an art collaborative / bar. And so I get the opportunity to DJ once a month on a Friday night, which was last night, to DJ there, and they do swing dancing one night a week. On Monday nights, they have open jam. Anybody can come and you can just kind of sing. And I've actually tried to use my turntables to open jam with guitars and drums and all that kind of stuff, which is pretty cool. And I think they do salsa dancing one night. They do performance stuff. So if you check out the Vaudette, they have something going on every night, and it's worth kind of hanging there.
Okay, I didn't know about the Vaudette, and now I'm not gonna lie. My wife just told me this week that she's putting us in a dance class, and I was like, wait a minute now.
Which kind?
Well, I'm not sure. I don't think she went that far. She just told me she's putting us in a dance class. Our daughter is getting married soon, so I think she's got visions for things that are going to happen at this grand event of our daughter's wedding, and I'm just like, oh. Now, to be fair, I actually think I still have a little bit of rhythm. I'm not bad. I'm not Elaine on Seinfeld. So I think I'm okay. You know what I'm saying? But I wouldn't mind to learn if I was going to pick a dance class. I want to do like a salsa dance class. I think I would like that. And that music makes me happy all the time. Like it just, I don't know, makes movement.
Yeah, when I lived in Michigan, after I'd left Poland, I'd come back and worked in this corporate strategy in Michigan. And we'd go to the University of Michigan. A friend of mine, female, another friend of mine, guy, and me would go to the University of Michigan, and they'd have salsa dance classes.
Yeah.
And so I'd go do this salsa dancing. And so every other time I had a partner. And the other times I didn't have a partner. And so one time I go, and it's like, I got to find a partner. And it's like, okay, get a partner. And there's this like gorgeous, like, I'm like 30, right? There's this gorgeous college woman that's looking around like a deer in the headlights, like, where's my date? He hasn't showed up. And then she like looks at me and is like, oh crap, I gotta like do salsa dancing with this guy. And so she knew how to salsa dance. I was learning, so she was the lead for me for 2 songs. And then her boyfriend showed up, and so then I just had to sit and watch people salsa dance. But it was pretty funny.
Hey.
Yeah, I know what deer in the headlights looks like now.
I think you're holding out. I think you're probably a salsa expert, and you're just trying to hold back. I'm going to end up running into you at one of these joints, and you're going to be out there handling business.
I can tell you that at that time, having that salsa dancing skill was not a bad skill to have. And I did at the Copacabana in New York. They do salsa. They used to do salsa there, and so I went salsa dancing with a friend of mine, and I could hold my own. So at the time, but that was a long time ago.
All right.
Lost that rhythm.
You lost, man. You don't ever lose the rhythm. You just got to get reminded about it.
Yeah, I don't know if I can move that way anymore.
Well, now that's a different story. I'm not gonna lie. Joints tend to wear thin as we get older. Ankles, knees, and elbows and hips. They don't do the same things they used to do.
Yeah.
Okay, that was fabulous. Okay, well, at this time, we're going to take a short commercial break.
Did you know there are children in the Fox Valley in need of hearing aids, but their parents struggle to provide them because of lack of insurance or high copays? I am Juliette Sturkins, audiologist and board member of Here in the Fox Cities, and proud that this small local nonprofit organization has helped fund hearing aids for some 30 kids. Your donation would help more children hear. Visit hereinthefoxcities.org to learn more and to see their smiles. Every child deserves to hear.
All right, we are back, and I do want to take a quick moment and just give another quick shout out to our episode sponsor, Sturgeon Spirits, the Kasha's newest tradition. Also, don't forget to stop into Sturgeon Spirits and have one of those, the Kasha's cocktails. You know what, as a matter of fact, I would love to hear from you if you have a Kosh. Let me know what you think of that. Now, this wasn't just made up. This is actually what I do drink. And this came about from me, and y'all already know Sturgeon Spirits is my church. I spent some time there. This actually was created through experimentation and the blend of a couple of different things that I really like there. And this is what we landed on. And if you want to know I'm going to give you two of the ingredients of the Kosh, just so you understand, because if you know Timber, you know. One is blackberry vodka, and the other is habanero. And then there's another special ingredient that is like, oh, okay, I didn't see that coming. Yep, that's it.
Where can I buy this?
You got to go to Sturgeon Spirits.
Where's that?
Oh, well, here's the thing. I don't have an address off the top of my head, but if you look up Sturgeon Spirits Craft Distillery, it will pop up. They're typically open 1 to 9 most days, and it's a fabulous environment. Let me tell you. Here's what I love about them. Do you ever remember the cartoon Dexter's Laboratory? Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it has this laboratory-ish kind of feel because you can see back in the distillery room. It's clear glass. Just look back. And everything's a craft cocktail.
Mm.
They only sell their own spirits. So that's another part of it. And there's no TVs.
Nice.
So and so there's always this buzz of great conversation happening there. And I just think that's a different environment right now for your libations choices.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it is. And I very much feel like as I go there more and more, there's definitely this, let's just say, cheers regulars group of people. I'm starting to see some faces often, and and it's nice. Every time I see them, we're smiling, we're happy to see each other again, and then guess what? We get down to the business at hand.
Sweet.
Yes. And that is another thing about the Kosh. It is a sweet, sweet, yummy libation.
Well, I get down to Oshkosh a lot, so I'm going to have to pick some up.
You're going to have to pick some up. Oh, not only that, you can actually buy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Case. Right?
I'm sure that could be arranged. Okay. So right now we're going to roll into my favorite part of the Kosh, and that is called story time. And story time is an opportunity for our guests to tell the Kosh listeners a story, any story they want about anything they choose. And in this case, we might even get lucky enough to get more than one. All right, Jason, what do you have for us?
Sure. The first story I'll tell is about my 4th grade teacher giving me a bad report card. And it's like, how do you screw up 4th grade?
Bruh.
And so I get this bad report card in 4th grade, and my parents are like, what's up with this? And so we're going to conferences, and you're coming along. Okay. So we go to conferences, and she's like, your kid's doing fine. He's got all good grades. I wanted to see if you would come in enough to care. If you cared enough to come in because his grades are bad. And they're like, oh, okay, what's going on? I want you to take your kid out of the Milwaukee Public Schools as fast as possible. We don't think that this is going to provide, I don't think this will provide him what he needs for his future. Take him out. My parents freak out. Okay. And so like 2 weeks later, I'm in like this local Catholic grade school, like 4 blocks away. And then from there, I went to another school. I went to Marquette High, I went to Marquette University, and blah, blah, blah. And I did whatever I did. My best friend had Mrs. Johnson. And so he lived a block away. Mrs. Johnson didn't give him a bad report card. If he got a bad report card, maybe his parents might not have gone in, but they probably would have gone in anyway. They weren't as like hands-on as my parents were. He went to the Gifted and Talented School on 84th Street, went to Washington High School,
Right.
got somebody pregnant, got a little bit of drug problem, went to jail for a little bit, and, looks like me, 1 block away. We were basically the same kid.
Right.
I could be him, he could be me. And like I'd say, I'm a white male, so I have some embodied privilege in that. So I had extra 2 chips. If I was a black male in my neighborhood, I don't even know if that person would have gave me a bad report card. So I feel very lucky and have a lot of gratitude for the journey I've had, but it makes me compelled to work with people who have barriers to flourishing, because that was me. That could have been me. I've done all this, I've done the tests on like grit and this. I don't have a lot of grit. I just got lucky. I got someone who cared enough to give me a bad report card to check if my parents would be willing to give me a different narrative.
Wow.
So that also is what compels me to do some of the work that I do with flourishing. I was a Milwaukee Brewers bat boy.
What?
In 1986, and I was on the visiting side, so I saw the good players, and there were a couple good players for the Brewers back then. But I have a lot of different stories about being a bat boy and being on the visitor side. The 2 quick ones I'll tell you is on, if you remember, do you follow baseball at all?
I haven't followed. I follow baseball when the Brewers are winning. If they losing, I don't know nothing. But if they're winning, I start following at the playoffs point.
Yeah. So as a bat boy, you'd have to work like tons and tons of hours, and they couldn't pay you for more than 40 because that would actually break child labor laws. And they paid you like $2.25 at the time. So you'd work like 12 to 14 hours a day. If you had a long homestand, you worked 12 days in a row. And so Wade Boggs was a player for the Red Sox, and he was known to be highly disciplined. And so it was a night game, but someone has to show up. If a player wants to be there, you have to be in the clubhouse, because you're bat boy, you're actually our clubhouse assistant. And then you either did a bat boy or you threw the ball in left field with the players. And so I got that. So about 11 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game, he shows up at the field. And so someone's got to be there, and you're going to be there till 1 or 2 in the morning, because you got to clean all their shoes, clean their clothes, clean the food and all. So I watched the Kentucky Derby with Wade Boggs. And so it was just me and him there, because someone had to be there to open up for him and to do that. One time I was supposed to be the bat boy for the New York Yankees. Bruh. And I lost my job.
What?
I lost my job. So I'm supposed to go out there and be the bat boy. Now, you know, who wants to dress up like a Yankee anyway if you're a Brewer fan? This was back when, Brewers were in the American League. But I lost my job. So, like, one of the players brought their kid with them, and the kid was going to be the bat boy. So I still got to work, but I didn't get to go out there and wear, the Yankee stuff and all that. And that kid was Ken Griffey Jr. So Ken Griffey Jr. took my job. Bruh. And he was actually quiet. I think he's a year younger than me, or he might be my age. He was a quiet kid. He was really nice. His dad was Ken Griffey Sr., who played for the Yankees at the time. And so he had brought his kid along to do that and took my job away. So I can't hold a job sometimes.
That's pretty good.
The third quick story. So I was reading this book one time, and I like to read. I read a lot of nonfiction books. And it was a book by Parker Palmer, who's actually lives in Madison. He's like 80-some years old now. And he wrote this book, and he was talking about a process of helping people think through problems. And it's a Quaker process where you don't look at anybody and you turn your backs to the person so they can't get any feedback from you of like all your nonverbals. And you sit in this circle and you like have this circle of trust, and you sit in the circle and you get this feedback so you can work out your own problem. And I'm like, this is the weirdest thing I've ever heard of. So I call the guy up and say, hey, I heard about this circle of trust thing. It sounds kind of interesting. I'd like to like do one in like the Appleton area. Do you like know any facilitators in the area that could like help if I got a group of people together? We could do this circle of trust. He's like, you know who the facilitator is? I'm like, crap. He wants me to do it. So I have no idea how to do this. And so I get a group of guys together. I went to Marquette High School. So I was like, guys don't always have a space where they can just chill, be themselves, and work on their personal coach being themselves and create a space that's safe and caring so that they can work through whatever problems they have. And so I facilitated this circle of trust of guys in the Appleton area for a year. And so we would meet like I think the first year we met 5 times for a full day, and we would just sit and talk. And you can't give any advice to anybody. You imagine that? You can only ask questions on their behalf.
Oh, okay.
Them. You can't say like, "Don't you think you should?"
Oh.
So no advice, and a bunch of guys in a room not giving advice. So I had to facilitate that process. Fast forward, we are now in our 3rd season of the Circle of Trust, and so we're doing our 3rd year. I'm the co-facilitator, so there's someone who had come from a previous one that's also facilitating, and we just get a group of guys together for the year, and we meet 6 times, half a day, and go through the seasons. So we start in the fall, we go through the summer, and we'll have our summer graduation. We have an alumni party, and we get all 3 seasons together, and we just bring people together as a way to do that. And people like it, and every season I have something I'm working through. This year my focus is focus. So I normally do lots of things, and so I'm trying to focus down to the Fox Valley Data Exchange and Generative Local Community Institute and DJing. Those are the 3 things, and then I try to keep the rest of the stuff away. And so this group helps me work my own process by creating the space for me to do that.
How do you join the Circle of Trust?
Season 4 will probably be coming up in the fall. So if you know anybody that would be interested, it's just an open group of guys that do that, and we figure out a way to do it. So,
all right. I think there's some Kosh listeners out here that might be like, "Yep, I'm about that life." That sounds interesting. I'm not gonna lie, that sounds super interesting. Okay.
Orson was in Circle of Trust 1, and he's in Circle of Trust 3, by the way. One of your guests.
Oh no, we love Orson. Orson is one of the greatest storytellers of all time. So he is fabulous.
He knows how to sell brittle for sure.
Oh, well, no doubt. Okay, well, cool. Well, you know what? Thank you for those stories. Those were amazing. And now it's time. Every time it still makes me happy when we get to this point and that music comes on. It's time. It is time for the topic of the week. Topic of the week is chosen by our guest 99.9% of the time, and this week is no different. I promise. All right. So, Jason, what's our topic of the week?
Well, based on that intro, which you probably kind of worked and mixed together, it's remixing music.
Ooh.
So the topic is remixes.
Yes.
And how to think about them and how to do them. Do you have a favorite remix?
Yeah, I do have a favorite remix. My favorite remix is it's an Little Kim did it. It was originally done by it's a Biggie remix, and I can't even think of it off the top of my head. Little C's. So Little C's did the original, but Little Kim did the remix. The
Nice.
Little Kim version's much better on it, and it's "I Got a Crush on You."
Oh, nice.
Yes.
So I used to be called J Dog with 2 W's. That was my old DJ name and remix name. And so I remixed 10 songs a few years ago under the J Dog name. But then there was one remix on there called J-Dog featuring DJ Dom, which was basically me featuring myself. So now I am DJ Dom and been working on remixes. And what's been interesting, I've done 16 remixes, and all of them, similar to your shows, are live remixes. They're not produced. So you basically kind of do it and you lay it, and if you don't like it, then I just re-record it. So it's all re-recorded live stuff. But I've done, I think, 16 remixes, but I've done 4 of them in the last month, and I've done 16 of them in the last 8 years.
Wow.
So all of a sudden, I've moved into a different space on these remixes. So those remixes are recorded, and then I do remixing primarily when I'm DJing. I'm trying to take 2 songs together. So the one I'm working on right now is, I'm calling it Rocket to Heaven, and it's Stairway to Heaven and Rocket Man remix. So Elton John and Led Zeppelin as a remix.
Nice.
So been trying to do that. I just did one with 9 Inch Nails and The Shape of You. What's that guy's name?
I know
with
who you're talking
with the
about.
red hair.
Yeah.
Ed Sheeran.
Ed Sheeran.
Yeah, so Ed Sheeran and 9 Inch Nails. So I just did a couple remixes of their stuff, and it turned out really well.
Okay.
Not G-rated, but it's a whole other point.
Facts. Does 9 Inch Nails make G-rated music?
If you take the lyrics out.
Facts.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what I like to do on my free time. That's how I relax. And
How do you pick the songs? Like, because that's a big part of it, right? So, like, how do you choose these 2 things? Because some of the stuff you're talking about, them 2 don't hang out together.
Yeah, well, I was listening to the Shape of You recently, like about a month ago, and I'm like, that totally fits with Closer by 9 Inch Nails. So if I put those 2 together, I wonder if I could play with this and figure out something. And that's what I was doing. I was playing Stairway to Heaven, and I'm like, I think Rocket Man would fit on there. Let's see if I can get that to work. And so then boom, or I'll hit, when I'm doing live remixes, I don't, I'm not one of those that just sticks a little memory stick and pretends like I'm actually mixing. I actually do a lot of it on the fly. And so I tend to look for beat matching typically, or pitch matching, but I can shift both beat and pitch in my work, or in my play. And so I have degrees of freedom, but I normally try to play that way. And when I see, I started out with Michael Jackson, They Don't Care About Us. That back beat is really easy to remix with lots of stuff. So I've done a Moby, did a Moby song with that. I've done some stuff from the 60s, like I was talking about with, modern stuff. So I like to juxtapose those 2. There's a guy named, his band is named Girl Talk. And so Girl Talk will put up to 200 samples into a song.
Oh, wow.
And so I saw him in concert, I don't know, about 15 years ago. And I was the second oldest person at the concert at the time. And the guy I was with was the oldest person at the concert. But I just watched the way he would take memes of songs, like the things and smush them together. And the joy that the fans would have from doing that. And at the concert was like, so if I can figure out the way to plop memes together, I can do that. So that's what I've been trying to do with a lot of the songs. I did a Mr. Roboto and a Gloria by U2 remix, for example.
Oh.
That took me like a year and a half to figure it out, but I finally got it, where I had to add a 3rd song in to help it kind of play.
So this is the process. This isn't like all of a sudden you're just like, I'm just going to take these 2 songs and then I'm just going to kind of move these couple of buttons. It's a process.
Yeah, you got to, there's a kernel there, and then I try to play the kernel and see if I can make it work. And sometimes I can't. And so I've taken stuff and just said, it's just not working. And I just did one that I play on my phone and it sounds good. And I played it last night and it sounded horrible. So I got to go. It's a Electric Light Orchestra, Don't Bring Me Down, and the Doors Soul Kitchen mix. And so it works, but it's like I had the recording, the volumes were just like totally off. So I had to figure it out.
How did you teach yourself, or did you teach yourself? How did you learn this?
Well, I started out DJing my son's hockey games. So, you would just play songs. And so from the time he was 3 until he was 18, I was at hockey rinks. And instead of being in the stands, I would just in between just put some songs out there. So I learned that way originally. And then I started to say, oh, well, I could actually bring these two things together. And what helped is the technology. So I'm not I can't take a vinyl 33 and remix and stuff, but I can scratch off of the unit I have if I want to. But because I can pitch match, because I can beat match, because I can isolate vocals from drums and all that type of stuff, these are things that the technology has allowed me to be like a, DJ for dummies or something. So now I have the tools that I don't have to figure out to allow me to do the stuff I like to do. So that's been cool. And it's getting better every year. So,
I'm not going to lie. I love this conversation because I've been looking and I want to learn. And I know I have no business trying to do this. This isn't like, but I'm fascinated by it. I think everybody, why do I have this feeling like everybody secretly wants to be a DJ? Like everybody thinks it's the coolest thing.
Well, what a few things happened here in the region. One is I'm friends with Rayan.
Oh, of course, Mr. Brown.
Yeah, Mr. Brown.
Shout out to Mr. Brown.
Really good at DJing.
Yes, he is.
He's like a real DJ. I always call myself
he's been doing it forever.
Yeah. And we have events together. Oh. So the two of us would be side by side doing DJ stuff. And so I've learned from him from that for sure. And then he's thrown me out a couple times like, oh, you can do this one. And like, oh, I've never done this type of a show before. So I've done big shows and little shows now. And I'm like, wow, it's getting out of the comfort zone and just trying. And it doesn't always work. So there was some definitely bad stuff I laid down yesterday. But some good stuff too.
Yeah, well, I mean, if bad stuff comes on, do you got a backup plan right away so you can roll out of one and roll into something different?
Yeah, the way my system works is there's 2 turntable type things, but there's 4 tracks. So I can run 2 tracks on the left, 2 tracks on the right. So if I'm screwing up, I can go to some other song and let it run while I'm trying to figure out how to get out of it. So a guy came up to me yesterday. He's like, oh, I want you to play something from the Beastie Boys. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try this. So what I did is I took like a big band song, with like horns and all this kind of stuff and big drums and all that. And then I run the Hey Ladies track on top of it. And so I liked it. A bunch of people liked it. The guy that wanted the thing didn't like it. So then I went the other way and then I did a Sure Shot non-vocal instrumental with a Jay-Z song. And then he was like, oh, he liked that. So it just depends on, different people like different things. And I like the first one better. But hey, that's me.
Okay. Well, Jason, I am asking now to be part of that cohort of DJ school.
Sweet.
I think Timber needs to go ahead and be part of your DJ school. Hopefully this is something you put on your plate. I know you're trying to cut down on things, but wait a minute. You said DJing is one of the things you do. So teaching, help me flourish.
Well, I got
DJ. You like that, huh?
Yeah, I got DJ Dom. So you got, what's your name? Timberland? Oh, wait, that's already done.
I got to work on that.
You got to work on that. You got to get your persona.
I think I'd just be DJ Kosh.
DJ Kosh, that's good.
Yeah.
Probably isn't one. I got a DJ Dom. There's like 50 of them, so I'm DJ Dom, Wisconsin.
I know another DJ Dom, as a matter of fact.
Oh, no.
Well, no, he's here. He's actually, he used to DJ at Molly's down here.
Really?
In the Kosh. So, good brother. Marine.
I'll be a small D, a small O, and a small M. I'll be good.
I think there's space for everyone.
Exactly.
I don't know, or maybe I just need to get a cooler name like DJ Grinch.
Yeah, I like DJ Kosh, too.
DJ Kosh could work.
Could work.
Okay. I like it.
You kind of extend your brand, man, that way. That's perfect.
That's not a bad thing.
Good
okay.
idea.
What if you just did a plain Jane like DJ Smith?
I don't think there's any of those anywhere.
Right? That would be like, it's DJ Smith. What does that mean? What kind of music does he do? Actually, I've thought about this multiple times. If I was to do it, I want to have a cool name like those old school Quiet Storm DJs back in the day. They used to play the slow music. Like they'd have a slow jam show at like 10 p.m. at night. You remember that? They used to have the Quiet Storm in Milwaukee. Something like that. I want whatever that DJ name. Like DJ Smooth Like Butter Honey Reese Cup. I don't know.
At Victor's Cocktail.
Yes.
Well, I lived in London in the mid '90s, and that's when the house scene just broke. And so it was, I just would go to these house scene events, and they were one.
Oh yeah. I think
really great.
I feel like there's a business plan somewhere to have a place that just focuses on dance and house music.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just go in there and sweat, and you sell $10 bottles of water.
There you go.
That's it. Just no liquor, $10 bottle of water. Go in there and sweat for like an hour.
There was a place in London on Sundays called The Church.
Oh,
have to check that out sometime. I won't get into all the details, but let's just say it was an Australian bar. Your goal was to get as many Foster lagers in a plastic bag as you can, and it was just in this like crazy space and dancing and everything. And then you got out of there at like it started at 9 a.m. You got out of there at like 10:30, and then you go to the Backpacker, which was the next place. And then you got out of there at 1, and you're like, man, I think I've had a lot of beer by 1 o'clock on a Sunday.
that's facts.
It's pretty crazy.
Okay. Is there any last things you would like to add on to your topic of the week?
No, I think I'm good with remixing. I think I found another person who can like remix with me.
Oh yeah, I'm in.
Sweet.
I'm in. Okay. Well, thank you. All right, Kosh listeners, you know what that means. It is time for us to start wrapping up this episode. So I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for spending time with us. Thank you for giving us your minds and your ears. Thank you for being interested in another one of our amazing community members who's out here doing really impactful, cool things. I can't stress it is important for us to get to know our neighbors. And that is the point of the Kosh. Get to know your neighbors because it's easy for us to stay in our silos and miss all of the wonderful work of our fellow neighbors, our fellow community members that's going on out here. We're a work in progress. We're always trying to get better. Help us become better. That's what we need. So don't hesitate. Feel free. Reach out to us. Let us know how we can do a better job. Email us if you want to be a guest. Email us and let us know who you would like to be a guest. Suggest someone or make a contact, make a connection. Help us find that individual who would be a great guest here on the Kosh. You can reach us at askthekosh@gmail.com. Once again, that is askthekosh@gmail.com. And then I only have one more thing to ask of you, and that is this. Help us get in front of more eyes and ears. We've got something pretty special going on here at the Kosh. I can't even tell you, we grow every week. I run into listeners all the time, and I just wanted to say, for everyone who stops me and lets me know, thank you. For everyone who tells me about their favorite parts of different shows, thank you. This is a work of love in so many different ways. But what I really need you to do is, while you're listening to us, hit your subscribe button. And then if you've got a few more minutes, actually fill out a review. Because you know what that does? It helps our analytics. And analytics is the way that the Kosh gets in front of more of our community members' eyes and ears. So, once again, thank you all. Now, you know what's about to happen right now. It is shout out time. Let's go.
So I'm going to do my shout outs like if I won some kind of an award at the Grammys or something. So I'm just going to give you a list of people and go down that way. So first of all, I told you I met with Brian Pirtle over at Lawrence University. Awesome guy. And I always learn something from him. The Circle of Trust group right now is Jared Pelkey, Ben Bruns, Marty Arnold, Mark Walker, Trevor Hippus, J.D. Gildemeister, Orson Fournier, and Manny Vasquez. I have a board of directors at the Fox Valley Data Exchange. It's Rachel Podosky, John Brogan, Tammy Geenan, Doug Gearin. I have 2 groups I work with at the Generative Local Community Institute, Nancy Hikes, Ted Toussaint, Forest Lighthouse, JD again, Adriel Dene, Bonnie Nussbaum, Garrett Singer, Via Jones, Julie Philippek, and then last of all, my wife and my sons Adam and Noah. We named Adam because we were trying to find a name that was Polish and English and sounded the same. And so we started with A and we got to Adam, was pretty easy. And then the second one was like, if it's a girl, my wife was going to name the girl. And if not, we're just going to work our way down the Bible. And it was Noah next. Abraham would have been the third one.
I love the strategy of names.
Yep.
All right. Okay. My shout outs. I want to send a shout out to Reggie and Roxanne at Area 509. I just went there the other day and look, I'm going to tell y'all right now. If you've not had that jerk chicken sandwich with the garlic aioli, you're missing out because whatever is going on with that garlic aioli, that makes it. You know how there's certain things you put on that sandwich that just makes the whole sandwich, like the substance of the sandwich is excellence, but then there's that twang, that thing that says, woo, now that's special right there. That is what this garlic aioli is going on this sandwich. So make sure you check Reggie and Roxanne out at Area 509 because it is yummy yum. Want to send a shout out to Sarah, Mike, and Carissa from the Accelerate program. Just had them in my office the other day. We recorded an episode of Appleton Engaged. It was excellent. What a fabulous program! Like the who they're helping and the way it works and the fact that it's free. And I don't know about you, but don't nothing beat free. And that is an amazing thing. So if you want to know more information about that, reach out to me here at the Kosh and I can help connect those dots because they're doing amazing, amazing things. I want to send a big shout out to Angie Lee over at Rawhide. I got an opportunity to do a presentation with some of the gentlemen at Rawhide, and that just felt good. It's Black History Month, and what I will say is this: I don't know if everybody gets to get cred and love from those gentlemen, but the minute they found out I was from the mill, that conversation went a whole lot better. So, shout out to being from the mill, and then I want to send a shout out to at the City of Appleton, our Sunshine Club team, who hosted our chili cook-off the other day. And let me just tell you, now, if you know Timber, you know I do chili. And number 2, you know I enter chili competitions. And number 3, you know I win chili competitions. I do not just talk this smack. I am about this life. But I did not win this one. I will say that I placed. And I entered now I've got a chili that I enter all the time. And it almost always wins. And I won the first year I put in chili cook-off. I did win with it. But this time was my second time entering. And I only enter it every other year. People brought their A game this year. People were coming for titles. And so I placed, but I didn't win. But nonetheless, it is a fabulous culture building, team building thing that we have at the City of Appleton. That's just awesome. And there were some really yummy chilies involved. I want to send a shout out to my man Tarman for allowing me to be part of the mock interview process for our up and coming officers. That was special. And let me just say this, when people are out here and we've got jobs that are very much, particularly public servant jobs, that are public facing and have high interaction with our community, make sure when you are doing your hiring process that you have a wide variety of individuals in that process to have input and to help people see things that they may be missing. There's something to that. So big shout out to my man Tarman on that. And last but not least, as always, I want to send a shout out to my wife, who continues to allow me to host a podcast in the house. So big shout out to the wife. I love you, baby. And yes, that is it. All right. There's one thing left to do for us to wind up this episode of the Kosh, Jason, and that is this. You've got 3 choices. Choice 1, leave some parting words of wisdom with the Kosh listeners. Choice 2, tell us what would yourself today tell your 13-year-old self. And choice 3, you can do both. Let's go.
I think I'll go with choice 1.
All right.
So as we've been working on helping everybody flourish, we've been working on using the 8 forms of flourishing as a way to help people flourish. So you can check out our website at genlocal.org. We're working on those 8 forms of flourishing, and we're trying to get a measurement system in so that people can grade themselves in a way that they can help themselves improve. So kind of respect your own uniqueness, respect others' uniqueness, work collaboratively, act as local as possible, enjoy flourishing. And in the end, we say, as I said, generative, not AI, but generative local community is flourish together.
Facts. Big facts. Okay. Jason, what you think?
This was awesome. I love it.
You know what? It's the Kosh.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank
Make
you.
this place great.